Okay, let's see, 4, 8. Looks like we have enough for quorum. Shall we give it another minute to see who else can join, then we'll start? You okay with that? Unless Kelly, you want to include your cat as a participant, that would help too.
He's a pretty good PA, but he messes a few things.
Okay, T. Greg, Kristen, Quentin, Jenny, Byron, Tim, little Steven, Jim, and again, Kelly. Greetings from Pryor, Oklahoma.
Is it warm?
It's about 97 degrees,
Ooh.
which is probably the same as Wisconsin, right?
Pretty close, yeah. Oh yeah, today's gonna be a warm one. Dry too?
Pretty much, but the humidity is starting to increase.
Yeah.
So it gets up there, especially when you go into a paper mill and it's about another 20 degrees warmer.
You know what the answer to that is?
What's that?
Don't go into paper mills.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
If only, right? All right, should we get started? You ready to go? Thank you, everyone, for joining. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend the meeting. And thank you, Kristen, for your help in organizing this, and Stephen as well. Krista, does everybody have the agenda for today? Received it? Okay, if you want to pull it up. First order of business is we will do a roll call. So I'm not sure if everyone has the same screen look as mine. We can go from left to right, or if it's easier, I can just ask you to introduce yourself. That way you won't be talking over everybody if you're okay with that. I think everyone's on the screen, but let me do a participant list here. So if I miss anybody, we'll step in. Kelly, would you mind starting, please?
Kelly McCullough, Dunn County Board of Supervisors, Chair of the Highway Department.
Great.
Not Highway Department, Highway Committee.
Thank you. And Jim?
Jim Tripp, Dunn County Board of Supervisors, Chair of Judiciary and Law.
Great, thank you, Jim. And Stephen?
Stephen Finlay, Dunn County Emergency Management Coordinator.
Thank you, Stephen. And Greg?
Greg Tamberg, Big River Resources, Environmental Safety Coordinator.
Great, thanks, Greg. And John?
John Swarsky, Dunn County Highway Commissioner.
Thank you, John. And KT?
KT Gallagher, Dunn County Health Department.
Thank you all for your good work, everybody. Quentin?
Glenn Poff, Deputy Chief, Sand Creek Fire Department.
Thank you, Quentin. Krista, if you'd like to say hi too.
I am Krista Venn from the Dunn County IT.
Thanks, Krista, for helping to make this meeting happen. And Kristen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Bunch. I am Dunn County Emergency Management Program Assistant.
Oh, great. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you.
And Kristen?
Kristen Essick, EHS Manager for Phillips Medisize, Menominee.
Okay, thank you. And Jenny?
Good morning, Jenny Legaspi with the American Red Cross.
Thank you, Jenny. And Tim?
Tim Koleski, Menominee Fire Department.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And Brian?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Brian Morris representing Dunn County Aries Races.
Thank you, Brian. Did everyone get called, or is there anyone missing? If you would jump in, I think that's everybody, but if not, please let me know. Okay, next order of business is the review of the previous minutes. If you would take a moment to look those over, please. And then if you just give it a moment, see if there's anything that stands out that you'd like to bring up. If not, we will entertain a motion to carry and then ask for a second. Are there any questions or
Make a
comments?
motion.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, if you raise your hands, please. Okay, opposed? I can't see your hands for about half the people. So just yell out if you disagree. How's that? Some people are camera shy. All right, motion carries. Next order of business is the City of Menominee Type 3 Hazmat Team update. Tim, would you be able to give us an update, please?
Well, good morning. Since the last meeting, we purchased a new hazmat trailer. We sold the hazmat truck and trailer and got a lot more money than we thought we were going to get from it. We got rid of the 96 Ford and we got a new trailer from Johnson's Trailer for just under $9,000. And it actually has, plenty room for us. And we're in the process of remounting all the equipment and purchasing new equipment. We currently are working with the EPGAR grant with Dunn County and Pepin County and purchasing confined space emergency bottles with line supplied air. We did respond to a call just a couple days ago on Highway E South to a truck that overturned and it was carrying 1,600 gallons of liquid asphalt sealer. And we responded with Elk Mound and they requested hazmat because we had to mitigate the spill runoff going towards Old Elk Lake. And it was a nice kind of a training for Elk Mound Fire and our fire department as far as where to park the vehicles and how to mitigate an incident. The company itself took care of the mitigation as far as getting sand and the removal of the product. But us working with the county department to get sand out there and working with Elk Mound Fire and Menominee Fire, it was a good learning experience. No one got hurt. The truck looked like it went through a paper shredder, and I don't know how he walked away from it, but he didn't have a scratch on him, but everything went really well.
Do you know the cause of the accident, Tim?
He said that as he was driving around the corner, he could feel the product in the tank shift because he didn't have a full load or an empty load. And he tried to overcorrect and he ended up going end over end. It was quite an impressive crash.
Well, like you said, glad everyone was able to walk away from it. Okay, thank you, Tim. Anything else to add from either events or from your perspective? You mentioned the new vehicle, but anything else you'd like to bring up?
No, we're just continuing on getting rid of the stuff that is old and purchasing new equipment and expired. Right now, we're looking at purchasing new dragger tubes and chem strips because they expire every year or every 2 years. So yeah, we're just updating everything. Everything is going well.
Okay, thank you for your good work. Any questions on the hazmat report or for Tim? Okay, and welcome, Kate. We'll next turn it over, if you would, Stephen, on the emergency director's report. If you could kind of walk us through some of the different elements, including the budget review, please.
Sure, I've got a few things here to talk about. Budget review. We have no expenses to report other than wage and fringe at this time. And then I can get into the spill reports and claims updates. Carryover from last time, we just met in April, so it's only been a few months, but some of these carryover, they take time to close out, they take time to finalize. And when I say finalize, this is usually the DNRs takes care of this. They have the final word on whether a spill is closed out and the remediation is satisfactory. January 4th, there was a 150-gallon diesel fuel spill on I-94 as a result of a motor vehicle crash. That one was closed out May 10th. March 3rd, we reported on a 100-gallon diesel and a 30-gallon hydraulic fluid that was in a logging truck in the woods in the Boyceville area. That one's still open as they're still waiting for a final report. That was on March 3rd. April 13th, 2,500-gallon manure spill or manure release. That one's been closed out by the DNR, turned over to their concentrated animal feeding operations staff for further investigation. April 22nd, there was an 8-gallon diesel spill at Stout. There was a delivery truck that had a fuel tank underneath for refrigeration unit, and it was compromised as the truck drove over a high spot on the pavement, and that's been remediated, and that one has closed out. May 15th, motor oil spill on I-94 as a result of a motor vehicle crash. That one is still open, waiting for a final report. It's been cleaned up, but they're waiting for a final report. May 25th, it's a little different. It wasn't a spill, it's an ongoing process. There's private property cars stored, and there was some concern about leakage from these cars, and the DNR staff's looking into how they're going to handle that. And then the one that Tim mentioned a moment ago on June 14th, just Monday night, the 1,600 gallons of asphalt sealer that was spilled along County Road E south of 29. Been all cleaned up. Monarch Paving, I went out there Tuesday morning at 8:30. They had it all scraped, ready to go, and it's been matted and seeded since then. That one, there'll be a finalization on that. There's a little bit of work to do with that yet. The DNR spills response officer has to take a look at that one yet. So that is the spill reports. One claim update. Menominee Fire submitted a claim for their efforts for $2,630 that we will compile with any other claims that come in. If Elk Mound has claims, if the Sheriff's Department or the county for their sand, we'll compile those claims in compliance with the spills reimbursement policy that we have on the agenda here to take a look at here in a few minutes. So it'll be my first experience to see how that all works. And so far, I think it's been an ideal situation, as ideal as it can be. And we'll see how the process of reimbursement works now that the remediation's been pretty well completed. The next item I have is the offsite plan reviews. I updated, or in coordination with the facilities, updated 5 plans. We have correction. I've updated 4, and I wrote a new plan. Let's see here if I got my notes. The Ole Americas plan in Boyceville, oh my God, let's see here. Here we go. They removed their diesel product from there. They had a standby generator that they don't use anymore, and they added a peroxyacetic acid that they use as a no rinse sanitizer. It's not an extremely hazardous substance, but they are reporting it as a chemical on site. And they do have a new environmental health and safety officer coming on board probably this week that I have to meet, and then I'll update the plan to get their contact information on there. Phillips Medisize plan review. They did some administrative updates and some clarifications in the narrative of their processes in their facility. Big River Resources Boyceville, they had some changes in quantities to chemicals present. They also had some updates and some clarifications on their loadout processes and their storage processes for their response equipment in their facility. AT&T, the central office right in downtown Menominee, their update was only the change in a property manager contact information. And the new plan I wrote was for Charter Communications. That's the cell tower just west of town. on Meadow Hills. They're in the process of downsizing the facility and eventually going away, but they do have backup batteries on site that are actually, they're kind of interesting. They're the batteries, it's not a liquid electrolyte in them. The electrolyte is embedded in a mesh. So if they were to break, if they were to get punctured, there'd be a minimal spill because it's all contained in the battery within. So that's a new plan. And that's the plans report. Plans updates. If anybody has any questions, we did forward those out. They're pretty big files. We take the safety data sheets off because a lot of those are scanned in and they make a huge file, but they will be part of the file when we turn them over to the responders and in the jurisdictions that the facilities are located in. That's all I have for the coordinator's report.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Appreciate all your efforts. So we talked about the budget review, the spills report, and the new plans. Are there any questions from the committee on any of those items that Stephen was talking about, or any comments?
Steve, I have a question if I might.
Sure, Jim.
Steve, I'm pretty new to this, so maybe you can give me the 60-second rundown. These plans are written by you based on information you get from the separate entities, is that correct?
Yeah, the facilities report annually to the state a chemical inventory that they have on board that they use regular base, whether they produce it, whether they use it, or whether they store it. And so there's a list of hazardous substances, and that's defined by OSHA. And if it requires a safety data sheet, then it's a hazardous substance. If they have it over a certain threshold, they report these to the state annually. If they have there's another list of extremely hazardous substances that if they have these present, and in a lot of cases it's ammonia, it can be, some examples are anhydrous ammonia, chlorine, sulfuric acid is a big one, and that's present in the batteries in forklifts in a lot of these facilities. If they have these chemicals in a above a defined quantity, then we have to write a plan for them, a response plan. And that's what the plans that we just reviewed here. In Dunn County, there's 23 facilities that require these plans. I review 5 to 6 of them every half a year. So it's on a 2-year rotation. I get a quarter of them done. And then these plans are then turned over to the responders so that they have a heads up as to what they may expect if they come into these facilities in a response mode. I know from their standpoint, they do pre-planning and they do walkthroughs at a lot of these facilities too. So we have 56 facilities that report all their chemicals over a certain quantity, and then we have these other 22, and they may be the same facility, 23 that have these extremely hazardous substances that can cause a problem if they're released and they get out into the community. For the most part, they're contained within the facility, but some of them can.
Right. The reports themselves, such as the ones that you forwarded to us this time, are they developed by the facility and you review them, or is it?
We work.
I'm looking at kind of the process here.
Yeah. We have a template that we work off of from the state, and there's a lot of basic information in there that we fill out, and then we work in conjunction with the facility, and Greg and Kristen are here and others that we go back and forth and we do the updates. But yeah, there are certain elements in there. We have to have a contact information for responders. We have to have information on what they have at the facility to respond with of their own equipment. We provide information on facilities that may need to be evacuated if they're in the vulnerable zone, like daycares, senior homes, hospitals, things like that. And it
Right, I
varies
saw
by facility.
Yeah, I saw that stuff in the reports. But again, the basic question is this. And I understand there's a template for them. I've got some kind of background, not in chemicals, but in other hazardous materials. But the reports themselves, are they originated with the facility, or are they originated in your office, or is it a combined effort? Basically, what I'm getting to is ultimate responsibility for the plan itself and its efficacy, its completion. And I understand they'll all be reviewed by an agency of the state, at least I imagine they would be, either DNR or somebody. But I guess, does the facility provide you the basic information and you write the plan? Or do they write the plan with your input and review?
We write the plan with their input and
Okay.
review.
All right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and it's-
that's kind of where I was getting.
Yeah.
All right,
And-
thank you. The reports are pretty interesting. Again, I've got a little bit of a background in, I'm not in chemicals, but in hazardous materials, and I'm not a scientist, so a lot of that stuff was over my head, but it was interesting to see names of interpreters, for example. As you mentioned, facilities that might need to be evacuated in case of an emergency, that kind of thing. I was impressed. So thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on kudos to Steve for the work that emergency management does for our emergency response as the level B and type 3 team from the state. These plans allow us to make a safer response.
Thank you, Tim. And really what it amounts to is preparing our county for any eventuality. And to me, Jim, it's almost like a circular approach where we want to see what is the risk, what are some of the hazards that we might face. And we did expand last year too into some of the health aspects of this. Primarily the mission of the committee is to say, all right, let's look at what we have in terms of risk, what could happen, and then what are the resources that we either have or that we need to supply our local EMS, emergency response personnel, so that if there is a spill, they're going in prepared. They know for the most part, what to expect, and some of the cooperative agreements they might have with other counties, so that we're keeping our people in the community safe. And like what Stephen was saying, there might be a release or a spill at one particular site, or even something completely unplanned, like what Tim was talking about, somebody going on 94 or a rail. And all right, what do we do? What's the magnitude? And if you look at, you can look this up, it's called Emergency Response Guidebook, if you're not familiar with that. And it's updated every 4 years. The latest edition just came out. And it talks about these kind of things. And sometimes the magnitude of a spill, there was just one up in the Seattle area last year that I believe was intentional, and it took out several rail cars worth of crude oil. It's a massive spill and release. And so are we prepared? What do we have? And what do we need to do in terms of if we have a spill? And this is where the logistics come in, to think about how are we going to move people from nursing homes or from schools and how to alert them. So it's all one type of continuous effort that our committee works with in terms of the planning, so that we have some degree of confidence and expectation should there be an event that occurs. Good question, though. Any other comments on that? So where we've left it with the 4 plans that Stephen talked about, as well as the new plan that was developed, if we could entertain a motion to approve the plans that as they stand in terms of with some of the corrections or changes.
I'll move, Tripp.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Is there a second, please?
Seconded.
Okay. Once again, all those in favor, please say yes or raise your hand, or otherwise indicate. Thank you, Kate. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next order of business, if you look at your agenda, is the review of the LAPC committee rules. And that was part of the one of the 3 attachments that came in. if you've had a chance to look at those rules, or if you'd like to pull them up and then look at them now. Steve, I may defer to you in terms of maybe carrying this discussion from your point of view on the committee, what needs do we have, where you see us going with any changes, please.
Okay. Yeah, these need to be reviewed periodically. I've made no changes, or I've proposed no changes to them, I should say. So if anybody else has any thoughts or comments on what may be, whether it be a membership issue or a descriptive issue in the county or anything like that, I'd welcome any comment. The only change I made was a couple of years ago. I think I added contact information to use email addresses because that was more appropriate in our times.
And if you look through, I'm scrolling it down, even though I've looked at it in terms of any type of notes, or like you see section 3, the quorum, which is the majority for the meeting like we're having now, the voting, the type of appointments. Are there any positions that we need to fill right now, Steve?
We have a print media position that's been open, and we'd like to fill that. And that's, yeah, those positions are determined or by county board by resolution. So if anybody has a suggestion, we've put out the word to try to get somebody to fill that. To that one position. Otherwise, we're doing real well. We've got 27 members. We have a wide variety of membership. We have law enforcement, we have other responders, we have industry reps, which I think is very important to have on here. I think it's a good cross section of our representative of our community.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a person that is nominated or is possibly interested in the print media position?
No.
Okay. So that'll remain open at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. If you scroll through, you see kind of like what Stephen was talking about, Jim, to your question, the subcommittee. So we have the plan subcommittee that reviews these for us so that they can provide recommendations so we don't have to look at each one. That's a great time saver as well as the work on their behalf. So thank you.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. We could use that subcommittee to come up with somebody to take that position. The only subcommittee that meets on a regular basis is the plan review committee. We meet every period or every cycle that we have this meeting just before the meeting, and it's been virtual now, but we do meet. So yeah, if we were to establish a committee to come up with a candidate or two for the print media, that would be great.
Steve?
Yes,
it's not likely to get any easier to find a representative of print media around here. What's the possibility of expanding that definition to print or electronic media? We do have a couple of electronic sources of news, local news. At least a couple have been proposed, I know. If we simply added electronic media to our definition in the rules, that might expand the pool of potential candidates a little bit. I don't know if that's possible or desirable, but that's.
That should be fine. That's a great suggestion. I believe we can do that unless we need state approval on that. Do you know, Steve, if that's something that we would need to have approval on to change that definition, or are we able to just go with that?
I think that if we were to make that and have this group approve it, we'd be all right. I don't know if that needs to go to the county board or not.
I mean, I think that's a great suggestion because like Jim's saying, the print media is less visible than it was. And if everyone, I don't even know if we need to entertain a motion per se. What are some of the other opinions from the team that we have on the meeting? Do you feel that that's acceptable if we go to that, expand out the definition?
That seems very reasonable to me. If Jim hadn't proposed it, I was going to mention it myself.
All right, thank you, Kelly. We'll give you half credit.
It seems like a good evolution.
It does. All right. Let's go with it, right? Don't believe we need to vote. Then how would, so another question, maybe once again to the committee, is how do we get, for a better way of saying it, how do we get the word out? How would we advertise this or try to solicit some perhaps interest in the position? Do you have any ideas or any sources we can contact?
This is where I turn it over to Kelly.
Given sort of the information density, I think we'd almost have to contact a couple of the new electronic media folks directly to see if someone in their organization, because man, breaking through in terms of just general media stuff is getting so hard. I would do a lot of work with PR out of New York for book stuff, and even the people who have buckets of money to throw at this are having a harder and harder time.
Perhaps for the next meeting, we can have, if there are a couple of people that are interested, can form a subcommittee or just even an informal group to take a look at contacting our local area to see print-wise, Dunn County News, or perhaps expanding out, like Jim and Kelly are saying, some of the electronic media. Tim, you had a point? So is anyone interested in helping out with that? Going once, going twice. We can table it. We can look at bringing this up again next time. I saw if there was interest in contacting a couple people perhaps to do that. I'd be happy to help out. Anyone else would want to weigh in on this?
I'd be willing to help since it was my suggestion, but I have to confess that I have a real lack of knowledge about electronic media. I don't use Facebook. I don't use Instagram. I don't do those things. My only suggestion might be to use the resources of the Dunn County IT department. They might have some idea about how to proceed. And since Krista is with us now, and I'm sure she pays rapt attention to every one of these meetings, she probably, they're likely to have some idea of a direction we might try.
It might also be worth checking in with the new director at Dunn County Transit, because he's been doing a lot of work to try and break through and get people to know about the buses. So he may be more up to date on that stuff. I'm not up to date on the current.
I can reach out to Steve Hansen with WIS Community as well. He's on our Health Done Right coalition, and he does do a lot of interactive online media here locally.
Okay, thank you, KT. All right, good discussion. And what we'll do is, within some of the comments that were just made here, look at reaching out to somebody to see if they're interested, maybe even in attending as a guest. And then if there's greater interest, perhaps they could join or put in a nomination to join, and then we could vote on them to join the committee. So let's go ahead, and if you would even kind of informally reach out. Steve Finley, are you willing to kind of gather up some names and contact information? Okay, thank you. So if you would, if you have ideas, you have some interest, people that might be looking to join or take a look at LAPC, then if you would give that contact information to Steve Finley, then we can perhaps reach out to some of these individuals and see if there's interest, and then try to fill our committee up. All right. Any other comments on the committee rules? Stephen, anything else to add we talked about some of the other subcommittees as well.
No, I have nothing more to add. I just looked at, to answer your earlier question, section 9 says the rules may be advised based on 2/3 of this committee's approval. So it can be done within the committee. It doesn't have to be passed on to the county board for approval. So
Okay.
we do make that decision. We do to change it to electronic media that can be approved, and we go
All
forward.
right.
Yeah.
So we will call for a motion then in order to make it appropriate within the group.
So moved.
Comment? Did we have a first? We have a motion?
Yes.
Ellie, and a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you,
Tripp.
Jim. All those in favor? Kate, I'm looking for your thumbs up. Gotta wait for Kate. There you go. We're good. All right. Motion carries. Kate, we're going to elect you. You can have a dual responsibility because you're good with your symbols.
I'm good with my emojis, so I win, right?
You do. You're elected. Prize. Thank you. You guys are as bad as my students. You don't want to put your cameras on. All right. So next order of business is the spill reimbursement policy. And Stephen, I'll ask you if you would mind talking about that, please, and to see what actions you might need to take.
Well, basically what it says is an incident, and we'll use the incident Monday night as just a perfect incident. The responding agencies, the incident happens, the responding agencies come and do what they need to do. And for reimbursement, they submit their claims to my office, and I'll take them and compile them and submit them, look them over and submit them to the responsible party. We so far have the claim from the Menominee Fire Department. Again, we may receive something from Highway, we may receive something from Elk Mound Fire, and I'll compile these and they'll be submitted. That's the basic format. There's some technicalities as far as, I believe the mailing has to be certified mail and some of those things. And then again, if we get into issues where there's some pushback as far as payment, then we deal with that then. But that doesn't seem to be the case here because the company took the initiative. They took all night and they remediated on their own. And I think we're going to be in pretty good shape there. But so the policy, as I read it, I recommend no changes to it. It'd be nice to see it go through its process. It'd be my first time using the process, and we'll see how it goes. But in my read through, I see no reason to change it. Why? So.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Is there any discussion on the spill reimbursement policy? Any suggestion to change?
Just one question, and that's when was the policy originally written? Has it got a fairly long history or?
Yeah, this committee was formed in 1989 and it was all started back then. Again, I believe they worked off of a template to do it, but it was approved by the county.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, the reason I ask, I read through the policy and it seems reasonable to me, but being relatively new, I wouldn't catch any of the nuances that somebody with experience might notice. But if it's got some history to it and has worked, and Steve, you don't recommend any changes to it, I certainly would not recommend changing something that's been effective for us.
Yeah.
I think that as far as our fire department responding, especially diesel leaks, I have put in for the APGAR grant these portable catch basins that fold out like a turkey blind almost. It's like a little swimming pool, and it'll be able to capture a lot of the diesel fuel that's spilled that we can't get our equipment underneath it or stop the leaks. because of the extensive damage. And, you know, they're $400 a pop. So I think that we're going to be asking for this reimbursement stuff more frequent in the future. And then also if we, you know, God forbid we have to pull a level A suit, no one decons these anymore. Everything is disposable. So I think this policy works, and I think it's going to be used more often.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any further discussion? Don't believe we need to vote, as it will continue on with the same policy. The next item, or the last item before we go to public comment, would be the designation of the inspector in terms of the role, compliance inspector. And there are a couple different ways we can go about doing that. Stephen, would you maybe just give an overview, or if there are any questions, perhaps answer them?
As before, we've used the state as our compliance inspector, this Wisconsin Emergency Management has an EPRA division, and if we have a facility that needs attention, we would call the state and they would send a designated inspector down. So we've in the past designated the state as our compliance inspector. And I propose no changes to that. That's a common thing throughout the state. The state has a pool of people that they would send somebody out.
Okay, thank you. We've done that. Jim and B knew that over the years. It seems to work, Stephen is saying.
Yeah.
Are there any comments or questions on that, or do you wish to go further or look at other options? Okay, we'll continue on, and perhaps we're going to set the next meeting, but before that, we'll open up to any kind of public comments or any questions anybody might have in general, situation or what we're doing so far.
Just one question with the designation of the compliance inspector. Do we need a motion on that, or because we already have that as our compliance inspector, are we fine?
We should be fine if there are no other changes on that. It just kind of is a continuum. We can take a vote. I don't believe it's necessary.
And it'll be noted in the minutes that we discussed it. So, but it continues on through.
Although I kind of like see Kate's emoji again, but maybe we'll wait. Okay, so comments. KT, would you like to give us any update on the health situation, or you don't have to? If you're wishing to, that would be one thing we've used to have your excellent advice.
I can always give an update. I think many of us are tired of hearing about it. I know that I am. I think the good news is that we are seeing a plateau of reduced cases, which is fantastic. So for the last 3 weeks, we have had 5 Dunn County cases a week. So that isn't an average, not quite at the state's designation of low activity, but it does meet the threshold of the Brown School of Public Health for low. And it is suppressed when we look at the CDC data. So it is less than their low as well. So that's good news. Our vaccination rates have really also started to plateau. We are about 10% less than the state as far as our vaccination coverage. About 49% of the state population 12 and older has initiated vaccination. In Dunn County, we are 10% less at 39%, with only about 36% of our folks having completed that series. We continue to see infections in largely unvaccinated people, or folks that have not completed the series. We have had a very, very minimal breakthrough cases. So in fully vaccinated people, we're looking at we have 4 out of 15,000. So, I mean, I'm not a math major, but that's tiny. We do have some breakthrough cases as far as reinfections go as well. We have more of those. And from the notes, I know I talked about that last meeting. We are waiting to see what kind of protection is conferred with natural infection. So there is some speculation that will wane faster than vaccine conferred immunity. But again, it's science in real time. We are expecting the Pfizer and Moderna have started the formal FDA approval process. We're hoping that that'll move fairly quickly, considering there is an abundance of data showing the efficacy and safety of these two vaccines. We expect, so they're moving through, Pfizer is moving through the dose finding stage of vaccination for people under 12. And so there is movement to their stage 3 trial. And so we're hopeful that we'll have vaccinations available for children under 12 by October for Pfizer. So that's good news. And then, yeah, I think we're going to see what fall looks like with probably some more breakthrough cases or reinfections rather. So people with waxing immunity from natural infection. And then as people start to gather again indoors with that kind of a thing. But I'm hopeful for a fairly normal summer with a continued decreased transmission rate here in Dunn County. Any questions?
There's also the Janssen vaccine, KT, and Novavax has applied for emergency approval. So would there be a variety? Do you see additional maybe options for people?
Sure. So J&J, we do continue to have some J&J here in Dunn County and many of our pop-up clinics, primarily just for logistics. It's a one and done shot. We want to go out once and get folks vaccinated that want to be vaccinated with a single shot or jab. Novavax, I don't know that that'll really be used domestically, but it is another option. It is incredibly stable, which is fantastic. You know, one of the challenges with Pfizer is that it needed to be kept very cold and had a very short duration under refrigeration. They are, again, science in real time, expanding both the temperature and the duration for many of our vaccines. So we had an increased duration of use for J&J. So we would have had to toss about 100 J&J shots on the 23rd. And we're able to keep them longer because of the efficacy being shown for the longer duration under refrigeration, which is fantastic. Yeah, Novavax, I don't know that that's going to make a huge impact. I think we're going to be more impacted by J&J's continued production issues. So we don't anticipate, Wisconsin does not anticipate being allotted more J&J anytime soon.
Okay, thank you. Great job. Appreciate all your excellent work here, to protect us. Any questions, any other comments or questions, either from what's been mentioned or that you have to bring up? Or for anybody? Okay. Last order of business before we adjourn would be to set the next meeting time, which, correct me if I'm wrong, would be in September. Is that what we're looking at?
December.
December, I apologize. Okay. Do we have a date? I believe it would be, let me look at my calendar. So if you want to look at, I may be wrong, but moving ahead, where it won't be 90 degrees every day. I believe it would be the 16th of December. So if you want to make a note on your calendar for December 16th, it may change. We'll talk to Stephen and Kristen on that, but if you kind of tentatively want to put that in there. We may even look, I don't know if it's too quick to say this, we may even look to have a potential hybrid or a live session. We'll have to see how things shake out in terms of the county and cases and so forth, but we may entertain a hybrid where you have the ability to go on Zoom as well as live, or we may just keep it in Zoom. And does this format seem to work for you, by the way? That's okay?
Yeah.
I guess for better or for worse, that's what we've been getting used to the last year and a half, right? So
it's nice that you can join from Oklahoma, so you don't have to be in state to chair the meeting.
No, I almost took a trip last night just to get back to make the meeting and fly back, but no, I didn't do that. No, you're right. That's true, KT. Actually, I think the committee wants to keep me out here. But they do have an LAPC out here, by the way, that I sat in on a meeting, and they talked about the ice storm they had in February, which was pretty significant down here, and they're not used to it. I mean, pipes were breaking, and it was pretty. You look at Oklahoma, Texas, if you weren't familiar, the temperatures got down to around teens, and because of they're not protected like they would be in Wisconsin, like for example, the facility I'm at, they had water line breaks underground, above ground. They're not insulated, and so you had a catastrophe. Well, you had all kinds of significant issues, as well as just the infrastructure. They're not used to icing or de-icing or sand. I mean, you had people with shovels trying to put pool salt on, and it's just that they're just not used to what they don't have. So it was quite an effort there, and luckily they got through it. But different environment out here. I go into the store a few weeks ago now, because I've been coming here every couple of weeks, and it was like going back 2019. I'm the only one wearing a mask, and everyone's looking at me like, "Why are you wearing a mask?" It's like, don't we wear masks here? But it's a different world. So be thankful for the quality of the healthcare that we have in Wisconsin. Good people. It's just different vibe. All right. So if you look at your calendars, and then unless there are other questions or comments, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
If I may just make one more comment, the December meeting will be elections. We do this every 2 years in December. So the chairperson position, the vice chair, and the secretary will be up. So if you have anybody in mind, if you've got a nomination, or if everything's fine, the only change that may take place would be the secretary position, as Marie went back to the sheriff's office and Kristen is on board now with the emergency management office.
Okay.
But that'll be on the agenda for the December meeting. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, please, if you're interested in any of the positions, let Stephen know, and we can certainly entertain that. I appreciate the update. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I would move to adjourn.
Thank you, Kelly, and your cat
I
will
can
second.
second.
All right. Thank you, Kate. All those in favor, please say aye or show an emoji. I'm expecting a different one, Kate. All those opposed? Motion carries. Please be safe out there. Try to stay cool. Thank you for attending, especially remote and the logistics, all the excellent work that you're doing, and keeping our county well protected. It's the best county in the whole country that we have, the excellent people that we have on the committee. Not that I'm soliciting to be the chair again, by the way. But anyway, thank you for all your help, all your excellent efforts. And we will talk to you hopefully soon. Take care.